Hello, and welcome back to more OCD. I believe this is part 15 today. So without further ado, let me quickly introduce you to my therapy dogs. You have one, you have two, don't mean to hold them like that, sorry boy, and number 3, my therapy dogs. And I also have the most important person, the book. And you have a look at that. That's roughly halfway now. We're making progress, people. We're all freaking progress. So without further ado, let's carry on, shall we? We're about to start chapter 5. Let's see if I can get this. That's about right. Chapter 5. Starting to tackle your problem. The previous chapter should have helped you understand the detailed way you respond to your fear. No, that's a misprint. It says way, but it's meant to be the way. So let's start over, shall we? The previous chapter should have helped you understand the detailed way you respond to your fear, and the way in which this can keep the central meaning going and therefore lock the OCD in place. By now it should be clear that the basis of the anxiety and discomfort you experience as OCD is an effect of the entirely understandable way in which 1. You have come to see or misinterpret your misintrusive thoughts as more dangerous than they really are. Think about that one. And number 2, these misinterpretations motivate and drive reactions which keep the sense of threat going, or even increase it. It's not possible, of course, simply to stop it. If it were, you would have done it already. In this chapter, we introduced the crucial idea of looking for an alternative way of thinking about the responsibility and threat means which sit at the heart of OCD. Now we think about how to consider the evidence and implications of such an alternative. Before we do that, we want to explain why developing and working on an alternative explanation can be so powerfully helpful. We'll do that by using an example. Think about the following situation. Imagine that you're sitting at the kitchen table one day. I don't have a kitchen table though. But I'm just going to pretend my kitchen's bigger, or rather big enough to have a table in the middle of it. So imagine you're sitting at the kitchen table one day and you hear a bleep. It is your partner/husband/wife's phone. You look at it and see it's a text from your best friend arranging a meeting the next day. Why the hell am I looking at my partner's phone? That's their business. The only time it's okay to check your partner's phone is if when they tell you to check it. That's it. Just because you're there and they're not there doesn't give you the right to check their phone, okay? Because I know someone say, well, what about trust? But I'll tell you this now. If you wouldn't want them looking at just open up your phone randomly and looking at messages, then you shouldn't want it for them too. It's a two-way street, people. Two-way street. You see more texts of the same type and see there are lots of phone calls. I think we know where this one's going, people. You can't make sense of it, but I worry, so you take a deep breath and ask your partner what this is about. Which, all things considering, is a sensible thing to do. I mean, you shouldn't have looked at the phone, but talking to them is the sensible thing to do. At this point, several possibilities can happen. Number 1, your partner offers you reassurance. They say not to worry, there's nothing in it, forget about it. Often people with OCD are given this type of reassurance. They are told not to worry. There is no truth to their fears. I love it when people say don't worry, as if somehow we haven't decided not to do that. I'm like, thanks people. I forgot that I shouldn't be worrying, so I'll just stop right now. Okay, I'm done. Unfortunately, this does not help. Well, obviously. Why? Well, in order to feel better, the person needs to make sense of what is really going on. They need an alternative explanation. In my experience, the only explanation you accept is the one that you've already come to in your head. So at this point, if you're convinced your partner's cheating, you're not going to accept anything other than your partner's cheating, unless they somehow say something shocking and that proves their innocence and you end up looking like a prat and feeling like crap. Number 2. Your partner smiles and tell you that they and your best friend have been arranging a surprise birthday party for you. Obviously the surprise is now gone, which is a shame, but you're likely to stop feeling worried. That is very true. But if that's the case, then you are going to feel horrible for not trusting and ruining it. Your will. The key to being able to tackle your OCD is having a sensible alternative explanation which allows you to understand the things you previously thought dangerous. That's what this book is about, making sense of your OCD in ways which allow you to see what's really going on, rather than being stuck in your fears about it. Yeah, excuse me, I still got the sniffles a bit. I mean, I feel a lot better than what I did the last couple of days or so, but it's still there, especially when I do these videos. By now you should have a good idea of the sorts of things that keep OCD going. We hope that you have been able to use this knowledge to gain some idea of what may be contributing to your own OCD problem hanging around. In this chapter, we introduce the idea of an alternative to your meaning, and we will consider the evidence and implications of this alternative. We will use the examples from chapter 4 to illustrate what needs to happen to break free from OCD. Using these examples, we will also guide you through understanding and tackling your own problem. Throughout the last two chapters, we have used the Fisher's flower, what therapists often call formulation. There will be those diagrams you've seen in previous pages where I've stopped to let you look, where you get like a bit here, a bit there, and it goes all around in a big circle. That is the Fisher's flower. There we go. The Fisher's flower is our diagram that helps us to understand the counterproductive nature of safety-seeking behaviours and other ways of reacting to responsibility means which go with OCD. The Fisher's flower is in fact a summary of the alternative explanation of how OCD works. This diagram helped us to see how OCD worked for Jennifer, Susie, Johnson and Jeremy. I'm sure you remember all of those. All people in very bad situations. Theory A/B. At the centre of the Fisher's flower is the key meaning that drives the problem for each person. For the person in our examples and for you, if you have OCD, that meaning has been treated as though it is a fact of life and has been lived accordingly. But what if this key meaning is not a fact at all, but to believe they can be examined? What if this key meaning is not a helpful way or even the right way of thinking about the problem at all? OCD has convinced you for a long time that something bad may happen, that it is your responsibility to do something about it. This belief, in whatever form it exists for you, has fueled all your safety-seeking behaviours, and the other reactions involved in locking OCD in place. It is important to say that striving to keep yourself and others safe is both logical and normal response, if you believe that there is a danger and that you can do something about it. However, we need to consider that there may be an altogether different way of thinking about the problem that you are experiencing. This is that, in fact, the problem is not one of danger at all, but one of worry about danger. Further than this, if the problem is worrying about danger, then all of the very understandable measures you have been taking to avoid danger have in fact kept the problem of worry going and may even have made it much worse. That feels very ironic, you know, the people? Very ironic. Take a minute to think about the difference between these two ways of thinking, about what is going on, and in particular think about what may fit best as a description of your problem. We call these two alternatives Theory A, the problem is danger, and Theory B, the problem is worrying about danger. Some examples of these two ways of thinking about the problem are given below, or rather I should say the next page. Excuse me, lost control of myself a sec for a minute there. 1 sec. Okay, and we're back. Theory A, OCD says, let's get this right. My problem is that I might be careless and household appliances could catch fire and burn down the house. Now this is something I worry about a lot. But Theory B says, my problem is that I am a careful person who worries about household appliances catching fire and burning down the house. Now, I think we know what I was going to say, so let's carry on. Theory A, my problem is that I will get contaminated with dirt, disease and germs and die. Theory B, my problem is that I'm a clean person who worries a lot that I will get contaminated with dirt, disease and germs and die. Theory A, my problem is that I'm a wicked person because my thoughts are blasphemous and I will be condemned for them. Problem B, my problem is that I'm a person who is committed to my faith. Because of this, I worry my thoughts are blasphemous and I will be condemned for them. Theory A, My problem is that I might be a child abuser who could harm a child. Problem theory B. My problem is that I'm a very caring person who worries that I might harm a child. And that's the end of the answers for now. You may be looking at theory A thinking that, well, if that was true, of course, I would worry about it. This is very logical, and it would mean that theory A was a better explanation of what is happening than theory B. Theory B is the idea that the problem itself is one of excessive worry. This is not to say that a theory B is just a worry problem, and therefore not serious, as everyone with OCD knows all too well. Worry problems are serious and significant. Consider these two alternatives as competing explanations for the problem. Think about which one makes the best sense of your experiences. In this sense, they cannot both be true. Evidence for theory A/B. Given that theory A and B are very different ways of considering the problem, they will have very different implications as to what you do about it. Therefore, it is important to think firstly about which of these two theories is the one that best fits with your experience, both now and in the past. First steps towards comparing them is to examine the evidence for each of the theories. When doing this, we need you to be unbiased as possible, so look out for whether you are applying double standards or accepting any ambiguous evidence. You can think about all the things which may support each theory. These could include things that have happened to you, things that have happened to others, as well as the opinions of others and how people generally behave. When we consider the evidence for each alternative, we need to act almost as though we are in court, with the same high standards applied to our evidence. Is the evidence relatable or merely circumstantial? Are the character witnesses trustworthy? Jennifer's checking OCD. We'll use Jennifer's example, see page 88. We're on 137 now, so you're going back quite a few chapters. For her checking problems. And so we have a new chart. Theory A. The problem is that household appliances could catch fire if I'm not careful enough. If you remember, Jennifer was the student who made sure every device was switched off because she was paranoid about a fire. Just in case you forgot. Theory B. The problem is that I worry about household appliances catching fire. Evidence. Evidence for theory A says this has happened before, because if you remember, Jennifer saw the news report about the student house burning down. So the fears are valid. But evidence for theory B is, I don't actually know what caused the fire I read about. I haven't actually heard of this happening to anyone, so it must be very rare, which is very true. And we have one more. Well, it's just evidence. The evidence is that this happened in a student flat, much like Jennifer's. But the other evidence is that I've often worried about things in my past. So let me get this correct. I've often worried about things in the past, but I could rely on others checking for me, so it didn't become such a problem. Nobody else is doing these checks though, so perhaps I just worry more than everyone else does, which is what other people say. So you can see Jennifer's problem. And one without this book, she'll not be able to overcome. So for the Jennifers of this world, get the book. It'll help you, much like it's helped me. Susie's contamination OCD. Look at the example below for the contamination problems that bothers Sue. This was back on page 98, previous chapters. Theory A, OCD, says the problem is that I will get contaminated with dirt, germs, or disease, and thus die. But the evidence for that is people die from MRSA in hospital. And I remember that actually being a thing. MRSA. Nobody talks about it now. Theory B, OCD, is the problem is that I worry that I will get contaminated with dirt, germs, or disease and die. But the evidence for that is I've often worried about things in my past. I've read lots of magazine articles about diseases that have made me worry more. It's actually very rare for people to catch these diseases and die. This is how I can relate because I'm like this at the moment with cancer. So I remember December 23, I found a tiny teensy lump on my testicle. And unfortunately, it was the night before I went on holiday. Didn't mean to check that night, but I was just making myself more comfortable, to say. And I found it there. And I didn't sleep much for most of the holiday, actually. So I came back a week later, done had to get an appointment with a doctor who referred me somewhere very quickly. And although they could feel it, I believe the doctor I saw that they referred to it as a ping. So it was a tiny little thing, but it was enough to freak me out. Anyway, they sent me to a specialist clinic in West Worthing, I think. Or is it Taryn? I can't remember now. I can't remember what the road's called. Doesn't really matter. Actually, you know what? I'll put it on the screen. Actually, you know what? It doesn't really matter, does it? Because if you get sent there, you'll know where it is anyway. It's a specialist clinic in West Worthing. They checked. They put some gel on my balls and they moved the thing over and they said they found nothing, which was nice. And I went home a very happy man. So, and now I think about cancer a lot, I'll be honest with you. It's like moles. I'll show you. See, don't know if you can just about look. See, I've got one here that's always been there. So it's this one here. This one's always been there because I've got a pair of trees so I can pluck hairs that grow out of this mole. Because remember, my dad once said he saw this thing on TV where someone didn't pluck the hair that came out of the mole and it kind of just went curling up inside and killed them. So that made me paranoid as well. But the point is, I'm covered in moles because I've got one here that's very faded. And I remember looking through a lot of old photos and it turns out that one's always been there. And sometimes I look at other moles and I think, most of these are here, but which ones are new and which ones aren't? So I remember going to the doctor about it and the doctor said, don't worry about it. Which did not make me feel better. It really didn't. So I said to the doctor, how do I know which is the new one and which is the old one? And they said, well, just don't worry about it, just keep an eye now. Fortunately, there are ones now which I can't really tell. But truth be told, if I went every time I found a mole I wasn't too sure about, they would have banned me by now for being a hypochondriac. So, not much I can do really, just hope that nothing bad happens. But truth be told, it's just OCD. It makes me paranoid. Because, I'll be honest with you, I'm terrified of death. My lack of belief doesn't really help with that because let's put it away. How do I put this? I don't have enough faith to believe that there is an afterlife for it, but I have enough faith to know that if there is one, I'm probably going downstairs for, wasting most of my damn life. Then again, it's probably no less than what I deserve, really. Anyway, back with the book. When Suze thought about why Fourier seemed so convincing, she brought to mind several stories she had read about people dying in hospitals from MRSA and realised that she found this very frightening. And I can understand that. I really can. She had never been ill or to hospital and was quite afraid of the idea. She knows that she was a person who was very tuned into issues of health and illness. When she considered Theory B, she realised that she had spent a lot of time focusing on her fears and that this had contributed to making her worries worse. She always noticed, and in fact it looked out, for the very rare case of illness rather than thinking about the millions of people who are exposed to all sorts of germs all the time and do not die. She had not helped this bias by looking on the internet and reading sensationalist magazines. See, I don't. See, this is something I'm lucky I don't do. See, if I've got a health concern, I go to the NHS website. The link will be up in the description because it's a really good website. You can put in, say, something like, say, sore throat, and they give you causes and things you can do about it. It's just straight up facts to help you, really. I mean, it's not really there to help you. It's just there to stop you from blocking the NHS and overwhelmed system as it is with stupid queries like a sore throat. It's a good website, though. I'll put the link up in this thing. And I'll even put one in the description if I remember. And I'll stress the word if, which you know what my memory's like. Jeremy's rumination OCD. Let's turn to Jeremy's problems of doubts that he might want to harm his or other children's. This is more recent, so we should remember this one. Fourier says the problem is that I might harm a child. The evidence for this? is that the thoughts make me feel very anxious. Theory B, though, says that the problem is that I worry that I might harm a child, not that I will. The evidence for this is that I feel anxious every time I think of the thought. The fact that the thought makes me feel anxious means that I do not want to act on them. Jeremy was very troubled by his thoughts that he might harm a child. When he began thinking about Theory A, he could not come up with any historical reasons or evidence that he was capable of harming anyone, let alone a child. However, the feelings of anxiety and dread were so strong when he experienced the thoughts that he found it very hard to dismiss them completely. He was sure that they must mean something. The strong sensation of anxiety was almost overwhelming, to the extent that he feared he might somehow lose control and act on the thoughts. Not much you can really say about Jeremy's, but for anyone thinking this, I'll say this now. If that thought enters your mind and you're disgusted by the thought, or you're incredibly anxious like Jeremy is, then that's a good thing, because it means you're a good person. You're just haunted by thoughts. So, yes, I know it's easy, and I'm trying basically doing the "well, don't worry about it" thing, but just try to remember that if the thought of doing bad things causes you to feel anxious, then you're not a bad person. Just take a stop. Just stop, take a breath, and remind yourself that you are a good person. And just think about it. You'll find it works. Johnson's religious OCD. Let's consider Johnson's problem, the more recent one we had. If you remember, Johnson, the religious man who wanted to have sex with his best mate's girlfriend. Him. Johnson's Theory A says, the problem is that my thoughts are blasphemous and I will be condemned for them. The evidence for this is that it is a sin to have sexual images when you're in church or thinking about God. Not much I can say because I don't really know religion, but I'm sure there's are people with more religious beliefs than I have, and I'm sure you can relate to this more than I can. Theory B says, the problem is that I worry my thoughts are blasphemous and I will be condemned for them. The evidence for this is, the images are not things I want to think about, and they make me feel very anxious. I've always tried to live in a very Christian life, and there is no other evidence that I am a bad person. I worry though about this because I am religious. I mean, there's not much I can say to this, but I will say this now. If you are religious and you have blasphemous thoughts, try not, I know it's easy to be saying try not, but what you want to do is you want to remind yourself, okay, that thoughts are not the same as actions. It's like when we're angry, it's like if someone humiliates you, okay, or bullies you, okay, you will have thoughts about hurting them, doing them harm. But doesn't mean, but when it actually comes to it, would you actually do those things? Probably not, no. Because you know you are a better person than that. We have the bad thoughts, but it's about how we deal with the bad thoughts that makes us a good or a bad person. If you act on those thoughts, then you are a bad person. But if you feel anxious, then you're a good person because the thoughts are making you anxious. As I said before, just stop, take a deep breath, and think that you don't want to be this person and that you are not this person. You're better than that. And thus, this is how we get through it, I think. I stress the word, think. Johnson first considered the evidence for Theory A. He had suddenly been taught in church that some thoughts and actions were sinful and was worried that his thoughts would come into this category. However, when he thought about Theory B as an explanation for his experiences, he wondered whether the fact that he was so distressed by these thoughts said more about the nature of the problem. If he had not been disturbed by the thoughts, he would have been experiencing them in a different way, with enjoyment. When he thought about the images, he realised that they were always very upsetting when they came. Though he struggled to be clear about where the images came from, I was worried that he might be tempted by the devil. There was certainly no enjoyment of them when they did appear, and he realised that he did not want to experience them. He'd always tried to live according to the teachings of his faith, and always considered his religion when making decisions in his life. Now, people, this is where it ends today because we're running out of time, and the next bit is quite long. And I'm starting to lose my breath a bit. I mean, I've still got a bit of a cold, or what remains of whatever I've got around there anyway. So I'm going to take a rest. I'm going to give my breath a rest for today. Hope that you all learned something. I hope that you're all feeling better about life in general. And until next time, I hope you all take care of yourselves and those you love. Bye.